Welcome to the Luna Holistic Podcast. I'm your host, Geneva Robbins, and every month on this podcast, we'll talk about Reiki, as well as answering your questions on all things spiritual. We are gratefully located in Calgary in Treaty 7 territory. Thank you all and welcome to the show. Hello, my name's Geneva Robbins, and welcome to the Luna Holistic Podcast. This episode, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about embracing the creative flow. And as part of that, I'll be sharing something that I wrote a couple of years ago that I dug up in some of my morning pages and my writings from many years ago. And it just sort of spoke to me that it's time to share it. I think about creativity and getting what you want to make into the world a lot. One of the things that's interesting about Reiki is that it unlocks this creativity within us when we work through some of the blockages, some of the limiting beliefs. What tends to happen is that it puts us in touch with this creative energy that runs through everything. And you get inspired. You get ideas for poetry, for music, for songs, for dances, for books you want to write, all kinds of things, maybe even businesses you want to make. So quite a few people have taken Reiki classes and they either want to start their own Reiki business or want to help in some other healing way. They've got an inspired idea to bring healing to their community or to reach out and create a positive change in the world. So all of those things I find fall under this umbrella of creativity or creative flow. And I kind of think like the biggest thing about what I love about this work is that it brings more of a person's essence forward in their lives. So Reiki has this way of clearing out the obstacles to your own true heart, your calling, your spirit, your purpose. And then also removing any interior or even exterior blocks and barriers to you expressing those inspired ideas, creations, and solutions, and maybe even making businesses out of them. So part of my work is to get the light workers working, get the people who are kind and compassionate and highly sensitive in the world, bringing their best light into the world. And so I do coaching here, the Energetic 8 coaching, and I've got the start to a business course, an e-course, and that's all sort of being built behind the scenes, but basically to share my process for how I built Luna Holistic. And basically, it follows the chakras as a model or a blueprint for bringing your work into the world, because I feel like whatever you're making is an entity all on its own. So whatever you're wanting to bring has an energy that is its own thing. It has all of the chakras, it has an aura. And when you tap into the energy of what you're making, as a separate entity from you, there's a bunch of things that can happen. So one is you take it less personally if somebody criticizes your work because your work is its own thing. It's not you. And then it's also a little bit easier to have a dialogue with it. And you can, in some ways, step your ego out of the process of whatever you're making, which I think is really good when it comes to things that land close to your heart, because the ego will just want to stop you and keep you from change. So that's a lot of what I've written in the notes I'm going to share with you today. I'm just going to read them. And you can listen back. They kind of almost, when I was reading them, I'm like, this is almost like a meditation on its own. And this is something that I'm kind of hoping you can listen back to if you are making something magical in the world. And we all have those inevitable sort of setbacks. And where you care about something, sometimes there's just like little obstacles or boulders in your path. And yeah, you get a little stuck or you get in these little detours or tailspins. And depending on where you are in the creative process, whether you're just starting or you're in the mucky middle, and you're not sure if you're going to keep going or you want to change tracks, or if you're in the final countdown, that those final push where you need that sort of laboring energy to show up like a pack horse and just like a mule, just put one foot in front of the other until you get the thing made and shared and into the world. Or you're in that vulnerable, nervy moment where you've made the thing, but you're sort of hesitating on the sharing of it. And this idea that I've been pondering is that there's this sort of inspirosity loop. So when we share the things that we make, the highest elevation of any work of art, any service, any business, anything that we are making and sharing, or creating space for others to make and share, that energy it's inspiring. So anybody who encounters work that was inspired becomes inspired themselves. So its ultimate goal is not just to stop at you and stop at the sharing and make you a cajillion dollars, which would be nice, but the ultimate benefit of doing anything, sharing anything, is that it will inspire others to make and share their own things, and that they will get a new viewpoint in how they're relating to the world and become inspired maybe to change the way they're living or to be kinder to the planet or the people in their households or themselves. Whatever it is that you are drawn to creating, I wholeheartedly support it. And it's also an act of generosity. The ego mind thinks that what we make is all about us, but actually it's generous. It's about the people you're making it for, without getting caught into any thinking traps about trying to impress anybody who might not be impressible, like the critics. We are instead flipping that around and bringing it more back to this generous act of sharing. So sharing is very generous and it's very nourishing, and it creates more creations. So there are so many good books and resources about this that I want to share before I read my thingy. But one of them is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. This is how this piece of work that I wrote actually came about, is that a couple of years ago, I started writing these morning pages, which turned into magic pages, which for me then turned into divine team pages, just writing with my team and seeing what tumbles out. The Artist's Way is a fantastic tool, a fantastic resource. It's written by Julia Cameron. It is wonderful for getting the flow going, and in any field or discipline. So just doing this act of free writing puts you in touch with what you really want to make. And it might not be writing, but if you're a painter, it will help you kind of clear away any of the flotsam and jetsam that's floating through your mind and get you clear. It gives you the space to sort of get clear. And in that space of just pure expression, where nobody has to see it, you don't have to share it, things just sometimes just tumble out. You get insight and inspiration. Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love. You may have heard of it. If you haven't, fantastic. She was inspired by the morning pages to learn Italian. That was the only thing, she was in a state. It's the only thing that was really persistent was, I just want to learn Italian. So that's how Eat, Pray, Love came into existence. So The Artist's Way, fantastic book. It can unlock your best work. And in ways that you wouldn't necessarily think would be the path. So that's a really great resource. Another really great resource is The Practice by Seth Godin, which is all about just show up in a routine, in a rhythm to your work, because your work is more important than it's an honoring, of the work, and that the creative work comes with practice. So being dedicated and just showing up and not putting any pressure on your creations to be anything or get anywhere or get you huge accolades or write the next $1 billion bestseller or whatever, you are just showing up with this pure devotion to your page, to your work. And I really love that one. Every time I read something by Seth Godin, I cry at least once. So it touches my heart. So it might be helpful for you. So many other ones. If they pop in, I'll share them as we go along. Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain is also a really great one. I believe the author's name is Edwards. I'll put all of this in the show notes. And that one is really amazing for getting you out of your left-brained mind, which is analytical and reduces things to symbols, and puts you in your right-brained mind, which is specific. And that's this part of you where you can draw and accurately represent sort of the details of the world. Fascinating process and really interesting for flipping you from one mode of thinking to another mode of thinking. And when you do that, it not only makes it a lot easier to draw and paint, but it also is an interesting way of, we do this in meditation as well. We sort of switch from a linear analytical mindset into a spacious awareness that puts us in touch with our calling, our purpose, a greater reason for being here. So these are all things I think about and flood in whenever I do Reiki. So, the other thing that might be really great if you're feeling stuck or blocked in any sort of creative things where you have this feeling of being close to your calling, but not being sure what it is. Reiki is what kind of connected me to my path and purpose, which is Reiki, like teaching people Reiki and doing Reiki sessions, but also writing and writing books and being creative in many different forms. This is a big part of what I do. And I really, really love when people hit their own stride and things that were sticking them are now unstuck and the work inside of them can be expressed. And Reiki is a really interesting way of just literally clearing any energy that might be sticking you in place. And it's also really great at tuning you into the energy or the essence of the work that you're making. So there we go. Thanks for joining me on this ride. We'll just take a little moment to meditate first, and then I will jump into the reading. So you can gently close your eyes and just take a few sighs of relief. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing your spirit and your energy to the work that you are doing to create more joy, bliss, and harmony in the world in small and large ways. And just take another breath and fully arrive in your seat. let everything anchor gently into the energy of the earth below you. Noticing that beautiful energy within the earth that stretches out all around the natural area where you're living. Noticing maybe the trees and the water and the air, the life that flows between all things and within all things, and the life that's flowing within you and how it's all connected. And just take another big sigh of relief. Just letting everything fall to the center and just sending out love and gratitude to the natural world, to the earth, and to your connection with the earth. Even if it's just as simple as gravity, to send gratitude to gravity. And notice that gratitude flows back to you and through you. All is well. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Thank you. With all of these meditations, I always want to know, like, what did you experience? How did that go for you? So you can always leave a comment. You can head to the website, lunaholistic.com/podcast, and you can leave a little voice memo, just letting us know how'd that resonate with you, or if you have any questions about any of the podcasts at all. I would love to hear from you. So yeah, head there. Okay. So this is what I wrote October 2020, actually 2022. And now thank you for listening in advance. When you are creating and sharing, it can be nervy, vulnerable, messy work. You can feel like you have sunk through the floor and you are just connecting to the surface of what you're trying to make. That you feel this way is very, very normal, and it's all okay. But sometimes your work is transcendent, magical, graced by something larger and wiser than yourself. You enter a state where you forget yourself and you are in the flow. You merge with the moment and you lose the struggle for expression. How do you get yourself there? How do you release the grip of the ego and just get to the making and sharing more often? There are many routes to this state, thankfully. The first is to lose yourself in the process itself. That means becoming incredibly mindful and present to the actual moment by moment craft of what you are doing, paying attention to the flow of the ink, the note you were on, the beat you are breathing, the typing like you are on a grand piano, just this one part of the process. You are curiously exploring, just focused on improving your technique in the moment, practicing, not trying to get it right or perfect for an imagined someone. Instead, you are strictly in the process, in the flow of the work, and steadily working to create in the moment. You forget the past and drop all thoughts of the future. You are just in it and you are surrendered. By losing the grip your mind has on the outcome, you loosen up and just start making. There's a steady abandonment of not enough, not good enough thoughts, and you are just in the flow. The amazing thing about this form of surrender is that it always works for all parts of the creative cycle. You need this crucial step of letting go with your work at the very beginning. You have to start without agenda and have a willingness to have many, many starts over and over again. That you will get better when you make many attempts. This work is not the only work you will make, but just one you are working on right now. You take the approach of a craftsman, a woodworker, or a fiber artist, let's say, and you are merely focused on this block of wood being cut right now. This one stitch, not the whole garment, not the whole cabinet, just this one part you are on, and you bring your full attention to that one part. When your attention wavers, breathe and know that you are breathing. Return to the step, the stitch, the part you are on right now. Focus on process, not progress or outcome. Sometimes you can make a deliberate mistake as a way to begin, to make a brush dab on the clean canvas that doesn't belong there, or a deliberately misspelled word, or a clumsy jumble of a paragraph. Do it wrong. Do it badly. Make a deliberate error and embrace all your errors as part of honing your craft. This way, you just begin and you create and make and share, and more projects will get started and more will be finished and shared also. Here's the truth. Your work is not about you. It isn't even about your fans or your critics. It is about the honoring of the spirit that wants to be expressed by you. It is about the work itself, and that is why you do it. That is ultimately why it matters and why it won't leave you alone, even when you try to numb it all out. Because it actually takes effort to play small and hold yourself back from the world. You have to put work into it to stop yourself from creating when you have something inside that whispers more. There is more here that is longing to be expressed, felt, and experienced. This is the biggest part of the creative cycle, honoring the energy within and just being a dedicated servant to the work itself. In this way, you let go more and you can flow with the energy inside that is longing to take form, and you are more patient and loving with your limited skill set. And you know from the beginning that your skill is always racing to catch up to your vision, that your ability to create exactly what you dream and picture in your mind is going to face real obstacles and limitations as you begin and continue this business of making. You will, however, ignite the pilot light on your skill learning furnace. And the willingness to make thousands of attempts becomes one that is met with love rather than grief or frustration. You are expressing through your medium of choice, whether it is paint, words, music, food, or gardening. You get to pick where you will hone your skills and do the daily work of crafting and creating. The medium you choose is often pleasurable on its own merits. Pick your favorite and enjoy every morsel of it. By focusing in this way, you learn a great deal and you get better at expressing what is inside. Trust this process to help you complete your great work in the world. When the work takes form, you can begin the process of finishing. Yes, finishing it. This tail end of the creative cycle can be the most arduous for many people. So if you have thousands of started things and not many finished things, then you are in very good company. This can be for many reasons. You can get stuck and run into a snag, a snarl, a knot. You can bump up into the unknown and the limits of your skills. You can get to a point of confusion where you may have lost the scent of the creative impulse and why you started it in the first place. Or you begin to lose sight of the moment and instead focus your gaze on what happens when it's done. You can run into the poverty of thought that after this one, all your good ideas will be used up and you'll not have another. Or you will be focused on the reception of the work, the jeer, the cheers, or the tears that it will create in your listeners, readers, or patrons. You get out of the moment, and that is exactly when you get lost and stop. You may have doubt or boredom set in. The one you were on has lost its shining, sparkling quality and that it had at the beginning. And now it is old and tired, and you feel its age sag everything about the edges. Maybe you feel old as you work on it. Like the work you are creating is out of date, not relevant, not as fresh as it once was. There are a million competitors out there with better, shinier, more glowy work than yours, and yours is drab and limp in comparison. So you stop. And you can stay stopped for a long while on many projects for a long, long time. Sometimes you stop because life hit you hard. The strong winds of change, kids getting sick, or changes of a job, health challenges, shifts in your relationships, just life just gets you down. And it seems like there is no juice left for finishing anything. Sometimes it's a major accomplishment just to get through the day and wake up for the next. So the creative dream slips and gets put on hold. The long pause. And in that pause, you are still creating, just in other ways. You are gathering life together, gathering wisdom and knowledge, gathering your tools, both physical, spiritual, and psychic. You are amassing power and clarity, even in those challenging days. And all that grace, courage, and wisdom will go into your work when you take it up again. So be gentle here. In the pause or the stop of the creative work, you are merely gathering, and the gathering is crucial for the fulfillment of the work. Even if all you learn is that stopping makes you feel miserable, that's enough. Or maybe stopping makes you feel free, giddy, like skipping school, wriggling out of the obligation of sharing, of succeeding, or of failure, letting go of the pressure to make something the inner or outer critic wouldn't like. It should be said that it's also important to be judicious about which paused projects you pick back up and when. Not all things started need to be completed. This is when it's vital to tap into your inner guidance and let the wisdom inside you pick which ones to do and in which order. This is because you need to listen to the soul in all matters of creation, not the ego. The ego will keep you on the pause button as long as possible. Years, even decades. I know I speak from experience, but you can release your work in good measure. Just begin finishing. Pick up the work. Just be with it again. At first, do not do anything. Just be with it daily for 7 days. Just open the document, pick up the project, just be with it. So now which to finish? The first step is to return to the energy that began the whole process. This is where having a creative dream planner is essential for the beginning of a project. This is a thing I made. It takes you through the energetic 8, which is a journey through the chakras, a process that I use to bring the energy of the chakras and the aura into your creative work. This transforms your creative process and gives you a structure to make decisions, tap into your big why, and give you a boost to keep going when you get halted on a creative work, project, or business task. by checking in on why the work itself was important for you to start. Whatever it was, for fun, personal growth, or a greater service to the world, knowing why you started can help you when it is time to finish. You are able to get help with the energy and really return to your true source of creative fuel. Sometimes this return to the start can help you let go and muscle through the resistance and put on the final miles of the project. You simply run out of steam and you need to re-inject the energy that started it all. Other times, the fear and ego stop you. This is totally normal and often happens when we are creating work that has the greatest potential to change things for you or others. That urge to stop and throw it all in the bin right as you are nearing completion is often a sign that your inner critic monster has taken control of your work. How do you get out of that kind of stuckness? The first stage is to simply recognize what is happening with kindness, grace, and gentleness. Shame sticks you in your creative work. It is simply a stopping force, not a going force. So more shame at the noticing that you are stopped or paused will not help you go. Shame always stops. What helps us move forward is compassion and empathy. So treat yourself gently and kindly as you would a dear friend. Be supportive and encouraging and soothing. It doesn't matter that you stopped. Nothing can be done about the past. Stop beating yourself up about it and just reconnect to the work by being with it for a moment. Don't try to work on it at first unless you are really enthusiastic to begin. Just being with the energy of the project without trying to make it do anything other than to exist. Just let it breathe next to you as you breathe next to it. Refrain from discounting this part of the returning process. We very often run at things in a straight line, going in a yang fashion right to the center of the bullseye. It's like hiking along a compass heading right to the top of a mountain, just scrambling up scree of cliff faces, bashing our way through the underbrush and thick forests. Then we get exhausted and tired and probably hungry, angry, lost and tired. We halt. And when we are approaching anything in this rigid way, it probably is a good idea to stop for a time and sit on a log. Resting is not always a bad thing for creative work. In fact, if done well, that is without shame joining the party, then you are closer to your goal because it gives you an opportunity to recharge, look around, experience some of the beauty of life, and gather tools, ingredients, skills, training in other disciplines. All kinds of growth and therapy can happen in the shadow of the creative mountain. Just by being with your work, you can return to the energy of why you set out in the first place. Trust this process entirely. Let it saturate through you. Who could be helped by finishing and sharing this work? If it is one person, it is worth it. Begin working around the edges of the project. Go around the outside. Yes, round the outside, round the outside. And clean up the clutter and fix a few typos. Start on something small and inconsequential. Take the wisdom you have gathered in the pause to look at the work with fresh eyes. Sometimes it's about writing an email draft you'll send out once the work is done and to your biggest support team. Something fast and flowy like, "Hey, I made a new thing. Take a look and tell me it's great." Smiley face. Or you can just polish a tiny corner or sketch out a sharing plan or create a micro task list of the first, next, then steps, just 5 minutes at a time. This noodling around the edges of a project will also be greatly discounted by your inner critic. But know that the part of you that dismisses the value of tiny steps and forward movement is the exact same voice that stopped you to begin with. This voice also might take the opportunity to bombard you with 200 tasks to do in the time it would take to do 10 or 1. It will relentlessly pressure you to do more than any human or machine is able and punish you severely for not measuring up to the impossible task of starting its never enough diatribe. You've got to be smart and savvy to its tricks because the pusher inside you is also the stopper. So just notice this pressuring as another form of fear and resistance. And just go back to the tiny forward motion, the tiny edging sideways step, the noodling and nibbling at the edges of the project, and return again tomorrow for another 5 minutes. Spiral your way to the center of your goal. Take switchbacks up the mountain. Look for help, solutions, learning, and guidance. Ask your inner mentor or your divine team to give you a tiny task to do right now on your work. I've heard my team say, just put your hands together in Gasho, which is a Reiki move. I've heard these tiny starts, just pick up your pens, just write an affirmation, just open your laptop, just open the file, just type one word, just make a mess. Write this next. Create an outline. Research a tool. Just edit one video. These tiny starts add up. At first, the attempts will feel smudgy, stained, wrinkled, imperfect. It might feel like a lot of failing and flubbing. We'll leave that in. Failing and flubbing and fubbling. Flubbing. Yes, all of those things. It will feel a lot like that. It will feel rough and vulnerable and frankly, terrible. Not your best work. But you are in remarkably good company. Dr. Maya Angelou, who just happens to be one of the most brilliant poets that has ever existed, in my humble opinion, said, sometimes I just write poesy. And poesy is half-hearted, simple, slangy rhymes of poetry. So I figure if the greatest poet in the world just gives her space to write poesy, we can just show up and just play around a little bit. This clearing of your pipes is all part of the process. This is why musicians and athletes practice. Why would we think anything else we do would not require practice attempts? Repetition, dedication, commitment, and courage to strengthen the skills. Creative warm-ups. To think you'll instantly be good at a thing the very first time you try and have the result be an instant smash and go viral is to completely set yourself up for the permanent stoppage of your creative work. It is unrealistic and hugely unfair to your creative process to demand this kind of instant success and quality and quantity and production. Sometimes it might happen that way, but it's like waiting for a coin to land on its edge on your fingertip after tossing it in the air. It is magic. And yes, magic can happen for sure. And the conditions, skill, and dedication to your craft are how you get to those moments. You become a better writer by writing, better painter by painting, a better chef by cooking. You put in the hours, you do one step at a time, you enjoy the process, start, middle, finish, sharing, and every bit in between. This is something that is hard to do. The resistance can be mighty. The internal and external pressures can be enormous, but the pressure doesn't create our best work. Love does. We can, for a time, use adrenaline and caffeine to trudge through the final hours of a project, but that is not a long-term creative strategy. That kind of pressure leads to burnout, depression, and anxiety. It is limited and consuming by its nature. Much better is to tap into a steady, unlimited power and energy to sustain you and your creative spirit. And that energy is love. Connected to the peptide oxytocin, the connection chemical, as Dr. Angelou says, love liberates. When you switch to this loving force and energy, you tap into the micro joys of the process. You connect to a deep flow that is sustaining and nourishing and grounded. This kind of love is not fanciful or fleeting, but rather is the life force energy behind birthing a baby, nourishing it with mother's milk. It is steady, adaptable, tireless. And just like breast milk, it flows in the quantity and quality according to the demand of the crafted work. And always love is how it flows best. This energy is inherent to us all as humans, regardless of our gender, whether we have physical children. We survive through this connection to something greater. And that energy flows through us from an infinite source. Everyone has it. It is all part of you since birth. Even if you lacked this kind of nourishment and care in your childhood, a part of you remembers that deep connection of your soul to the source of all. You and the infinite universe are all part of the same thing. And so when we flow with that kind of love, our work flourishes, and so do we. Just like taking a potted plant from a closet with an artificial light or no light and placing it in the sunshine, we thrive when we are put in contact with our source of true illumination. It supports and sustains the flow of creativity, and it cares for us. We work and nibble away at the tiny bites of a huge project with the patience of a mother nursing her newborn. You know, every swallow matters, every bit of good adds up, and you wait for each to be completed in their own time. There is no rushing through it. No pushing works anyway. Just like shouting at an infant to hurry up its nursing is something you would never do. Respect the beauty of the tiniest steps and send love into the work at every stage. So love is the force that sustains us in the final stages of a project. We show up with the steadiness, devotion, and love, even when we'd rather not. We do. Why? Because the energy behind the dream is bigger than our fear. Because we have put a face to the fans, a connecting story of how your work has helped somebody feel brighter. Your contribution matters. And that is the love that can nurture you in the last steps of completing something. Sometimes, often, the final phases of a project are the least glamorous. In writing, it can be optimizing a blog for SEO, or for woodworking, it can be the endless layers of sanding. Putting the final touches on something can be laborious, drudgery, not your favorite thing. But love can pull you through it. Like your favorite oxen hitched to your cart, it goes on steadily because it has chosen to love you back. Go steadily, one step at a time. There is no amount of rushing that will work on some sections of finishing a project. like editing a manuscript. It just takes the time it takes. Applying pressure is a certain way to create resistance and hindrance at the end stages. Loosen up. Try something new. Do something small. Reconnect to the love of it all. Let go of the outcome because that is ultimately not up to you anyway. Don't put so much pressure on yourself or the work, and let go into the love behind it all. Release when ripe. Letting go is not easy. Let's face it, when your creation is in your grasp, it and you are safe. When you release it, you open it and yourself up to the outer critic and the need for approval. And if your self-worth is tied to your work, then any criticism of your creation will be viewed as a mortal blow to your ego. It can be devastating, and previous criticism or praise can block you from creating new work or releasing old stuff that you've just finished. I won't pretend that this letting go process is easy for me. It is not. I struggle with it mightily. I have held finished work back for decades in some cases and slowed down the release of others for months. Sometimes it's not an outright stopping, but just an endless string of delays, waiting for the perfect time to share the work or tell people about it. Releasing means to let it go, and for that process to be emotionally and energetically successful, you need to release it like a songbird in your grasp. When a project is done, it is a self-contained entity, connected to but still separate from you. It has its own life force. It can survive on its own. It is time to be free. This is the moment. When you press send, hit publish, and let it be announced with joy. Remember the kind ones you made it for. Imagine them happy and joyful as you do this work of sharing. Imagine giving it to your audience as you would a gift. It is generous of you to share with us. And just like a gift, it is no longer yours. Once you've shared it, it belongs to the world. This can be remarkably scary and vulnerable. Nothing has gone wrong if you hesitate at this point or feel stuck. You are normal, and it is okay to feel the way you do. Get support from those who celebrate your rise. Get a session with a trusted caregiver and help from your most loyal fans, the one who always, always cheer for you. And then press send. Now for the magic. Keep making and keep sharing. If a creative work is significant, like a major show, a course launch, or a novel, then you will need to keep talking about it in your posts and everywhere you go for at least a year. Yes, a year at a minimum. Why a year? Because fear can stop you from promoting your work. If you are an independent creator or business owner, you can putter out of steam on the old stuff. You can judge it harshly or let negative reviews hurt you. Usually all of the above, or you might shrink away from success itself because doing well and receiving accolades and praise can be even more uncomfortable than failure. Failure is familiar. So our ego will wrestle to keep us in this narrow zone of familiarity. If our work does well, then we are faced with the unknown, and that can be truly terrifying. Soothe these fears by connecting once more to the wise and loving place inside of you. Nothing ever produced escaped criticism. But you aren't paid by your critics. You are paid by your fans. And it is ultimately them who you serve by sharing. So keep sharing your work with others, even when it is old news, because you are ultimately helping the work reach those who need it. Sure, it helps you too, but that is a side benefit. Ultimately, love can see you through the steadiness you need to launch your work and keep sharing it so everyone who needs it can encounter it. Make it easy for people to connect with your work by sharing it in as many ways as you can. This is a transformative work you have given to the world. So honor it and yourself and share. Thank you. Share with love and service in mind. Amazing. That was what I wrote. Maybe just for myself, but if it resonated with you, hey, you could share this, right? And even if it just helped you a little bit, it will create a vibe in the world. I think I'm a really big fan of sharing these kinds of inspirational things with people who are creators and makers that I love. And I just want to nudge them to make the stuff because what they do is so brilliant and it needs to be in the world. So if you know somebody who is a creative soul or has a beautiful business idea or any kind of inspiration, you can share this with them. If it resonated with you, it's likely to resonate with them, or they can just leave it behind. It's fine. But yeah, it's all so magic. And I am fascinated with that creative process, that creative flow, and sort of embracing all of that creativity is, I think, sort of the reason that we're here. It's our purpose in motion. We get to take what's inside of us and share it outside of us. Take that insight, that awareness, that purpose, that vision, and create something that is expressive and meaningful and definitely changes us by the process of making it. It's joyful, but it gives to the world. And that's ultimately why we're all here, is to do the things that we're supposed to do, make the things we're supposed to make, and share them with the people who are supposed to receive them. So thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing your creative energy, your time, your focus. I am fascinated with what you are making. If you liked this, I do creative warm-ups on my Substack channel, which I am currently renaming to the Bluebird Creative. Bluebird, as in the little bird that is blue, so that it can fly. And why blue? Why a bluebird? Well, because of the throat chakra and expression, but it also came to me in the vision in a Reiki session. So Bluebird Creative with Geneva Robbins on Substack. If you want to join there, there's a bunch of creative workshops we do, and there are creative warm-ups that get sent out every week. Check it out. Until next time, bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on the Luna Holistic Podcast. We're so grateful that you are here. If you've got a question, we'd love to hear from you. Go to lunaholistic.com/podcast and we'll answer you in an upcoming episode. Be sure to subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And also please rate, because you never know where your little 5 stars will go to shine light into somebody's heart today. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.